Number 40.
The first of our three debuts is by Blues Traveler, a group that's been popular on the concert circuit for years. In fact, when they toured last year, they were headlining shows with Sheryl Crow. This is the group's first hit on the pop chart. Here's Blues Traveler and Runaround.
Casey counts them down.
Well, now we're up to the first top 40 hit for Blues Traveler, a band whose lead singer says he's lucky to be alive. He was once hurt so badly in a motorcycle crash, he spent a year performing in a wheelchair. John Popper is both the lead singer and the harmonica player for Blues Traveler, and at 300 pounds, he's an imposing figure. But that figure was racked up pretty badly back in 1992. John was cruising on his motorcycle, riding along a rural road outside Bogalusa, Louisiana. Suddenly, he lost control of his motorcycle and smashed into a car. He says, quote, "I remember thinking this is going to be one of those accidents I've heard about. A long screech, a crash, and then nothing," unquote. Luckily for John, it didn't wind up that way. The motorcycle flipped over, and John was thrown down the road, flying through the gravel, winding up face down, and barely conscious. But conscious enough to recognize that he was in very bad shape. John had shattered his leg in several places, and his arm was broken. He was in terrible pain, but he was alive. John says, quote, "It was the worst thing that could happen to a person, to be alive, yet halfway broken apart and in total agony," unquote. In time, the doctors were able to heal his wounds, and after John got out of the hospital, he spent a year in a wheelchair. But that didn't stop this relentless singer from touring with his band. John says he performed on stage in a wheelchair, with roadies standing on both sides to hold the chair in place, because otherwise John would get so carried away rocking with the band, he'd roll himself all over the place.
Casey counts them down.
Sitting in for Casey Kasem, I'm David Perry. And leaping 7 notches to number 25 on Casey's Top 40, this is the first hit for the Dave Matthews Band. It's a song that features some high-spirited harmonica help from John Popper. He's the lead singer for Blues Traveler, another band whose first hit is on this week's survey. Here's the Dave Matthews Band with What Would You Say?
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. And holding steady at number 5 this week on Casey's Top 40 is a band led by a flamboyant singer and harmonica player whose weight often hovers around 300 pounds. He's the always energetic John Popper, along with Blues Traveler and Runaround.
Oh, once upon a midnight dear, I woke with something in my head.
Number 15.
Falling 2 notches is Blues Traveler. Their lead singer and harmonica player, John Popper, got his start performing when he was a teenager attending Princeton High School in New Jersey. That was when he and a friend formed a comedy duo and did impersonations of the Blues Brothers. John played John Belushi, and his friend played Dan Aykroyd. Here's John Popper playing himself, singing Runaround.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm David Perry, sitting in for Casey Kasem. And spending a second week at number 17 is Blues Traveler. Their lead singer and harmonica player, John Popper, always makes sure he's prepared for anything on stage. He wears a special jacket with lots of pockets, and he stuffs the pockets with things like a flashlight and spare harmonicas.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to the latest hit for Blues Traveler, a band that loves to play until they drop. The 4-man band Blues Traveler has been together now for 12 years. For most of their career, the band has traveled from town to town, from club to club, playing 300 gigs a year. That's helped them build up a loyal following that turns out for the band's extended jams, freeform shows in the tradition of the Grateful Dead. And that's why USA Today compared Blues Traveler to the vagabond minstrels of old, musicians whose whole life consisted of traveling around and making music. The members of Blues Traveler love to play live, and they say they've never really been concerned about making it on the charts. As long as they can keep on performing on the road, they're happy. As USA Today said, they love to play until they drop. This weekend, Blues Traveler continues their vagabond lifestyle with 2 big shows in Hawaii. At number 37 on Casey's Top 40, this is Blues Traveler and Hook.
It doesn't matter what
Counting them down with Casey Kasem.
Well, now we're up to the latest hit for Blues Traveler, a band whose harmonica player was inspired by the Blues Brothers, Jake and Elwood Blues. It happened one night when John Popper was 17. John was sitting at home watching one of his favorite shows, Saturday Night Live, and out came John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd dressed in black suits, white shirts, black ties, and dark sunglasses. They were Jake and Elwood Blues, the Blues Brothers. Jake and Elwood stepped up to the microphone, signaled to their band, and started to sing and play harmonica. John Popper sat there transfixed. He couldn't believe what he was hearing and seeing. The passion of the Blues Brothers' performance and the sound of their powerful harmonica playing got him hooked. John says, quote, "What I liked about it was that the harmonica can sound like a human voice. It has such an expressive cry," unquote. Soon John started playing harmonica himself, and over the years he's become a real expert, one of the most famous harmonica players in rock today.
Casey's Coast to Coast.
And sliding 3 notches to number 24 on Casey's Top 40 is Blues Traveler, a band known for their intense concerts. John Popper's harmonica solos can sometimes last 15 minutes, and entire shows can go on for 4 hours.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm David Perry, sitting in for Casey Kasem. Now we're up to But Anyway. It's by a bluesy band that traveled a roundabout way to find their name, a route that took them to the hit movie Ghostbusters. They began on the road to success calling themselves simply Blues Band, because that's exactly what they were. But soon they found out club owners didn't think much of the name. It didn't exactly sparkle on a club marquee. So the band decided to change their name to Blues Entity. But even that wasn't enough. Then one night, lead singer John Popper was sitting in front of his TV watching a rerun of the Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Harold Ramis film Ghostbusters. The evil villain in the movie is called Gozer the Traveler, and at one point a malevolent voice explains to a terrified New York City, "The Traveler has come." John Popper says that's when a new name for his blues band popped right into his head, the name Blues Traveler.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. What do you get when you combine an American rock and roll band with a French bagpipe and drum band at a show in the Swiss Alps? Well, you get a samba line 30,000 people long. It happened back in 1991 when the American band Blues Traveler was on tour in Europe. One of their stops was at a music festival in La Lacqua, Switzerland. It's a small town high in the Alps that sits at the border between Switzerland, France, and Italy. Every summer, its music festival attracts students and musicians from all over Europe. And among the musicians invited to perform that year was a 15-piece bagpipe, fife, and drum corps from Brittany in the north of France. John Popper of Blues Traveler was so intrigued by the group that he invited one of the bagpipe players to sit in with his band during their set. Unfortunately, John's French wasn't very good, and instead of one player, the entire 15-man band showed up. John says he stared at them in amazement when they all marched on stage during his set. Then, in the middle of the Blues Traveler show, they struck up a loud march, and all John could think to do was to sing along with them. He says he sang words from the song Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. That led to a bagpipe version of the theme from Gilligan's Island. And by the end of the show, John says that impromptu set inspired a samba line led by Blues Traveler and the bagpipe band that snaked all through the town. And John swears it was 30,000 people long. Not a common sight at a Blues Traveler show. This week, a song recorded last year at a much more typical show is at number 33 on Casey's Top 40. From their CD called Live from the Fall, here's Blues Traveler with But Anyway. We're heading for the hottest song in the land. Now, there's a band whose leader owns a piece of Civil War history. A 2,000-pound piece of Civil War history. John Popper is best known for his huge collection of harmonicas, hundreds of them. He says, "I love my harmonicas, but none of them is as interesting as my cannon." John became fascinated with the American Civil War when he was in high school. In the years since, he's visited as many Civil War battlefields as he could. And he says, "When I read about a cannon from the war going for auction, I knew I had to have it. The cannon was fired at the Battle of Bull Run in Manassas, Virginia. John paid $10,000 for the cannon and a few $1,000s more to have it transported to his home and set up on his lawn. He says, it would still work if I wanted to fire it. You can still smell the gunpowder in it. I can spend hours just looking at it. It always takes me back in time. It makes me feel like I'm there. Now, here's Blues Traveler with an extra from 1995, Run Around.
But yeah, why you wanna give me a run around? Is it a surefire way to speed things up when all it does is slow me down?